Hi, everyone, and welcome to Kyle and Nick on Film. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe, who writes for GoatFilmReviews.com.
And I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast podcast. You can find on iTunes, Stitcher, and Podbean.
Wonderful. And today we are going to talk about Crawl, a film that came out this year. Not many people saw it in the theater. I definitely did. Nick caught it a little bit afterwards, and we are ready to talk about this film that you should have seen in the theater. And if you haven't seen it yet, you should check it out soon. It's directed by Alexandre Aja, known for his horror films. And stars Kaya Scodelario as Haley, an aspiring swimmer who goes out to find her father, who she can't reach during a hurricane in Florida.
And it also features Barry Pepper, the veteran filmmaker, as her dad. And produced by Sam Raimi, who all our horror fans should definitely know about.
All right, so we are going to talk about the pros and cons of Crawl and a few other killer animal movies today on Kyle and Nick on Film, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back to Kyle and Nick on Film. Today we're talking Crawl from 2019. Nick, you saw it probably more recently than I did, so why don't you start with your thoughts on the film?
Well, initially, it was one of those that's a one-off. I didn't think they did a lot for promotion. I don't think they did. I mean, you had to really obscure for trailers to even know this movie actually came out. Definitely, they're probably looking for people like us to do the promotions, and we're happy to do it as well. This movie is definitely merging two genres that I believe. You're doing disaster films, which mix in with horror. I like the concept. I think if it's done carefully, well crafted, it can really take off. It's probably one of the best horror movies. It's a surprise to me. With Sam Raimi, you have certain expectations, but definitely this is not entirely just a horror movie.
You know, I kind of agree, actually, because it really does structure itself as a somewhat more realistic thriller.
Yeah.
And, I listened to some interviews with the cast, too, where they were very importantly talking about the amount of, comedy to lighten the tension. Yes. To kind of, it's kind of like a roller coaster film. And I really felt that being in the theater watching the movie was... I'm thankful I wasn't sitting by anybody specifically because I was able to grip both sides of my chair as I kind of rattled through this really tight 90-minute film. For me, I thought there was two really cool elements to the story. And number one, you have limited characters. Really, it's Kaya, and then it's Barry Pepper's character as the father.
Yeah.
There are other characters that kind of intersperse, but it's really their film. It's these two standout performances. And then you also have the very limited number of sets as well. This is essentially being in a house for most of the film. You get about 15 minutes of setup, and then you just get right into it. And I was really surprised because those are two really difficult things to pull off. Limited characters that are strong, limited sets that are strong. And the film really pulls off both of those pretty darn well.
No, I wholeheartedly agree, because especially when you make a horror movie, you try to isolate the environment, right? To narrow down the focus of the environment. They definitely do a good job at this. Mm-hmm. Wonderfully crafted of foreshadowing. Mm-hmm. Definitely, she's playing. Her school is the Florida Gators. There's kind of a little bit play of foreshadowing with locations and stuff like that. Sam Raimi, the script, I'm not really impressed with the script. What I'm really impressed with is the framing and the process of the story. Mm-hmm. It's Maxime Alexandre is the cinematographer, and he crafted very well the articulate you can even, if you watch the story, you can even just see the transition from Act 1 to Act 2 from the simple car ride. Mm-hmm. She weaves in and out. You can tell that this is from old to new. So the script is not really all that impressive. Dialogue is not really all that impressive, but the construct of the filming and the cinematography and the action is actually what really sells the movie.
Yeah, I think there's one great emotional scene between Haley and her father as they're starting to kind of put together this plan, but really almost kind of giving up at the same time. Yes. It's a really nice character piece for those two. They don't get a lot of time to really develop their characters, so that's why that first 15 minutes, for my problems with the screenplay, the first 15 minutes are so important in setting it up. So I tell people a lot of it with the film, I think it's a very slow first 15 minutes of the film. You just want to get to the gators and the crawling. Mm-hmm. But when you actually get down and see it, that whole first 15 minutes sets up everything that's to come. I think it's a nice, nice kind of piece of setup, play off, kind of like Chekhov's gun. We've seen a lot of that actually in film this year. You know, things like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where there's like a lot of setup to the film that really has a great payoff. And I think, you know, you have a shorter amount of it in this film, but it really does kind of kick into high gear with that.
And in certain little comedies too, the foreshadowing. I mean, plays for she's a swimmer for the Florida Gators. So the first thing you see is Gators on her ball cap.
Oh yeah.
So it's definitely they're having a wink to the camera when they're making this movie. Screenwriter, even though we're gonna kind of poop with the script was actually written by two brothers, Michael and Sean Rasmussen, who really came on the horror scene with their independent movie Long Distance. If you can check it out, it's one of those psychological thrillers of the serial killer tracking a woman down. That script is actually much better than this one, but I think this one is betterly filmed.
Yeah,
if you understand what I'm saying.
This one has a better conceit to it, where like everything, like the setup, like you know, I was listening to a great interview with the director, and he said really what got me into it was the log line and just hearing it's about a woman trying to save her father during a hurricane being attacked by gators. Like that alone is just almost perfect story idea that you can really go with. It's one where like you couldn't, even if I didn't see a trailer and you told me that was what the film was about, I'd be much more excited to see it than even just seeing the trailer and having the whole film projected in 30 seconds. For me, like the Rasmussen brothers also wrote a film called The Ward, which was the last feature directed by John Carpenter. Yeah. And that was another one for me where I love John Carpenter. I put up with a lot of some of the cheesiness that he does have, but I did not like The Ward either. And I felt part of the problem with that was the script. So I think, while this is not their best written script, it's also not their worst written script. No. And it really has, it's got the power director behind it who's able to turn it into something pretty impactful, pretty cool. So,
and one of the interesting things is, especially if you're doing writing, and we're going to talk about the little bit of the script, is if you don't know if you have an impacted film, they really stress put the weather in there.
Yeah,
put the weather in there, and that will mask a lot of problems.
Yep.
We definitely from the 70 movies of disaster films, you're not going to ever see great dialogue, and that's not the importance of disaster films. What we see in this is actually good stunt work. Very good settings. I mean, you get it both through the living room, which is fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of build-up tension because, especially for disaster films, they play time really well. You see how the flooding is going to creep up to me. So they do have a barometer that they use to see the element of suspense keep going and rising as the climax rise.
Yeah, it's very much like sands in an hourglass, you know, just filling up as their time is running out.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about Haley too, because I think she's a very strong female character who, you know, like she pointed out that one of the reasons that she wanted to take the film was actually because it's not a girlfriend character. She doesn't have to kiss anyone to survive the film. But I think more than any of that too, she's also a character who's put into a situation where her skill set can come to play. We're introduced to her right at the beginning. She's a swimmer. She is someone who has handled stressful situations in the water. And I think that's really nice because you get so often these characters, especially in thrillers, who are put their back against the wall and they really don't have the skills to get out, but somehow they make it out. And I think for her, it's setting her up in a place where she personally knows that she's capable, but she just can't really, you know, she can't really get the confidence piece to go out there. And that's kind of how it relates to her father's struggling relationship with her too. So I think that's a really cool way to start off with her character. You're introduced to her in that way.
No, it's kind of refreshing, especially for horror movies, that she is the focus. She is the primary focus, but she's not the victim.
Yep.
Even though she's going through this, definitely this trial. It's definitely she has a character that has some flaws, some strong suits, but there's overwhelming power, strength to this. Barry Peppers, who looks like he's just playing on the ground all the time, but it doesn't have to. But I like that presence. It's a refreshing, especially for horror movies.
Yep, and you get the father figure too, who, you know, he seems like, you know, he's a handy kind of a fellow. Like that's why he's down to begin with. He has what you would assume to be all the outward skills of being able to survive something like this, but he's immediately put into a position where he's suffering. He's down there. He can't get out by himself. And I think that's a really strong piece with these characters too, is, you know, any good writer will tell you that in order to make your characters successful, you also have to make them suffer. You have to make them suffer a lot. And I think there's plenty of moments of suffering in Crawl. I don't want to get into specific spoilers of it, but there are moments in there where you give up as an audience member. And you have to have yourself restarted.
And I would definitely emphasize, as Kyle's did, that this is a tight movie. There's not a lot of time to breathe, literally and figuratively throughout the movie.
Yep.
There's definitely comedy. There's a splash of Sam Raimi in this movie of horror happening as comedy's happening at the same time. There's definitely homage to Jurassic Park and Jaws in the movie. So they definitely are giving accolades to the movies that came before them to make this movie.
Definitely. We should talk real quick about the Gators themselves as a character, because I mean, there's not a whole lot, there's not character development. We don't learn the Gator's name or anything, but as these Gators too, it's something where the studying was done from from an outside level of really examining how these creatures would work. They're not super gators who like ate radioactive waste and became all powerful or anything like that. These are realistic kind of animals done to the best of their ability. I think there's a few liberties taken here and there, but I think overall it's not something that's going to pull me out of the film. What was really cool to me was that we get a character. An alligator is a very vocal animal. They're very loud. They make their cries, and I think that's kind of cool. We get this really unique, kind of roar coming from these gators too, that offers another layer of tension, another layer of horror to the film. And I think that's kind of cool.
One of the minuses I have for the movie is they're definitely obviously computer CGI.
Yes.
They didn't look like they used authentic props for it. It might be a takeaway for some people with this movie. But definitely I like that they're not like super mutant, attack or like tornadoes and stuff like that. I think the challenge was that so many popular movies like Sharknado and all that stuff was take those concepts and really make a good movie about it. And I think they answered the call.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think like we're going to talk about this as the episode goes on too. Some more killer animal movies. How would you want to see like these gators revisited in like a sequel, or would you like what do you kind of like want to see come out of this film? Do you want to see more gators in film, or?
Yeah, and I think it'd be based on everything we know about movies is if it makes enough money, we're going to get a part 2. I do like the ending. I think it's a refreshing ending. It ties in what the whole journey is all about, of not her just being who she is, but she actually rises up to her own challenges. Sure. Yeah. Sequel will be fine.
Yeah, no one's really getting out unscathed in this film, if they get out at all, but that's up to you guys to find out. We should talk a little bit about Alexandre Aja's filmography. So he's notably a horror director, really does a lot more with that kind of darker, thrilling kind of horror. Came onto the scene with High Tension. And then really excelled with the remake to The Hills Have Eyes, which actually I prefer to the original. I think it's a better film. Even though I don't really care for the film either, I still think this remake is one of those that's actually better than the original film. Mirrors, which is actually one of my wife's favorite films too, Kiefer Sutherland starring film.
And I would like to point out High Tension was very celebrated around the film festivals, the independent film festival circuit, and that's how he really got famous, is with High Tension. I would recommend to audiences, do not get the English dub version. It hampers away, it kind of makes it look ridiculous when you get the English dub version of High Tension. Get the authentic French version, because the people who did the overdubbing, the English dubbing, it looks ridiculous. It's off track. It slightly pulls away from what the movie can be. Obviously, audience members can debate the ending to it. But if you have never seen High Tension, definitely get the authentic French-speaking film version.
More often than not, that kind of, especially in a film like High Tension, where you really need to be invested in like the intensity of the moment, like that dubbing can really just mess with you. Like, you go back to those kinds of jokes like the Godzilla films with the English dubs, where the characters would keep on, the mouths would keep moving after the dialogue was done. And I think like anytime you can get the actual language itself too, you get kind of more of a cadence of how they're perceiving the situation, which works a lot better than the dubbing. Personally, my favorite Aja film is his remake to Piranha. I think it's a perfect satirical horror comedy that just really embodies like that fun nature that horror can do too, where it's got its thrills to it, but it also is not afraid to poke fun at itself.
No, and definitely this movie Crawl evolved from Piranha.
Yes.
It's kind of the same branch that he's done. This is not like a serial killer tracking you down. This is a disaster movie, and Piranha's definitely of the same ilk.
Yeah, so you say if you have like Hills Have Eyes as being like his most serious, darkest, or even High Tension being like that really intense, maybe want to pause it and go get some popcorn and like stand there and breathe for a little bit. Piranha's kind of the opposite, where it's this rollicking, fun horror film that really heightens up the gore when it needs to, but also really has fun with the material. So that's more towards it's comedy, I would say.
Yeah.
And then you get things like Horns, which kind of existed a little bit closer to Crawl, where it's got some comedic moments, but it's also got some harder edge moments, some more emotional beats. His most recent film before Crawl was actually the film called The Ninth Life of Louis Drax, which disappeared virtually after it came out and was very tough to find afterwards. Another insider thing about him, he directed what was going to be the pilot of a Tremors TV show with Kevin Bacon, and that pilot has not seen the light of day. It was passed on.
Makes you wonder what heck happened.
Yeah, definitely. Bacon never goes wrong, though.
But what we were trying to establish is with Alexandre Aja and Sam Raimi, they're bound to come together. Yep. I think they have same interests, and eventually they found a project that suits them.
Yeah, you can see, Raimi goes a little bit more towards the comedy edge of horror, and Aja goes a bit more towards the horror edge of comedy. Yeah. And they really kind of have a really nice melding here, where you get the realism, you get the emotional beats a little bit here and there. They really pull what they can out of the screenplay, and then kind of both learn from each other in a really interesting way. I'd like to see them kind of collaborate again on something else. But yeah, overall, I thought let's talk real quick scores. I guess what would you kind of rate Crawl on like a 1 to 5?
1 to 5, I'll give it especially if it's exclusively for horror movie, I'll give it like a 4. An overall film, I'll give it a pass.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I would also give it a 4. I think that it's a film that does have some flaws to it. Yeah. But I also think that you can really move through this thing in 90 minutes, and I think you're going to come out on the other side having an enjoyable time, and really kind of, being able to root for a new character, like a new heroine that we don't really have, in this kind of genre. So, closing out the episode today, let's talk a bit about killer animals in films. Do you have any particular favorite killer animal movies?
In the 70s, there was a bunch of killer animals. I remember there was a movie called Ants. Mm-hmm. It was all of a sudden there's just ants and everywhere. I think there's a Killer Bees movie.
The Swarm.
The Swarm is with Michael Caine, mm-hmm. Who's not afraid he's not afraid to say yes to anything. Yeah. So there's a bunch like that. Yeah,
that's fair. I always go to one that I think embodies a lot of what Crawl has, with the minimal characters and the minimal locations as well, and that's Cujo. The film adaptation of the Stephen King novel. And again, you get a little bit more into the fantastical there with the rabid bat that bites the dog and it turns the dog crazy, but you get a really tense thriller, the whole last half of the film being set in a car with a mother and her son. Yeah. I mean, it's a really tough situation to be in, and especially because, it's this rundown, beaten down car, and that this dog clearly has the ability to, PCP that window out. Cujo for me is one that I really, really enjoyed. Of course, there's the big one, the killer animal Jaws, of course. Probably the ultimate.
This is definitely giving homage. There's a clear homage to Jaws in this movie. Oh yeah. Gotta talk about the most. I'm trying to avoid it, but I want to say it. Birds.
The Birds? Yeah. Okay. Birds for me is one that I don't connect with on the same level as a lot of other Hitchcock films. I'm kind of miss on it, which is weird because I really like that idea of the animal that we see around us all day, every day is coming to kill us.
Only got an attitude. Yeah.
So, The Birds. There was also The Birds 2 that came out in the 90s, but we won't talk about that. So
nobody needs to know it existed.
Any others that you particularly go for?
No, this is it.
Okay. There's one for me that it scared the heck out of me in the 90s, and it's really campy, it's really silly, and it gets that kind of supernatural element to it as well, where you get mosquitoes, which is basically mosquitoes that feed on alien bodies and turn gigantic and ravenous. And it's got Gunnar Hansen, who's known for playing Leatherface in it, and he's just over the top, and everything in the film is kind of over the top, and it's really dumb. But as a 5-6-year-old, when I first caught it on Sci-Fi Channel, it really ruined me. So
even the title's over the top.
Yeah. Okay. We'll throw it out to you guys as well. Make sure to let us know what you guys think about Crawl. Let us know if you have a favorite Alexandre Aja film, or if there's anything that you particularly like from the killer animal subgenre of horror, or really any genre. So,
and if you've seen the movie, and if you can read Barry Pepper's shirt, please tell me. I've still framed it, and I can still not read what Barry Pepper's shirt says of this movie, and I think it's a valid, interesting point.
Mm-hmm. It's a 90-minute film, unless you're Nick trying to find out for 2.5 hours what the shirt reads. So, so there's our talk for Crawl. If you guys have any thoughts at all, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know your thoughts on the film. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend going to check it out. Everybody always talks about how there's not enough original film anymore. And then these films come out and no one goes to see them. There was 3 people in my screening, and I saw it about 3-4 days after it came out. So it really shouldn't have been as quiet as it was. So please feel free to check it out if you are comfortable with the intensity, comfortable with the gore that's coming. That's going to be it for this first episode of Kyle and Nick on Film. As always, I'm Kyle Goethe. You can find all of my film reviews on goatfilmreviews.com. We're currently finishing off our 31 Days of Horror right now, so you guys can check out the last couple films that showed up on there. Nick, where can we find you?
And you can find me on St. Paul Filmcast, Podbean, and Stitcher, and Google Play, where I interview local filmmakers.
All right, sounds good. We are going to sign off then. We'll see you guys next time.